Throw to first and Homer Bailey for the second time in his major league career has tossed a no-hitter. Oh, gosh. Are you kidding me? Holy Moses, the second player in major league history to hit 7 home runs in the first 10 games. In the air and the Reds win. What a dream to get into the career of Trey Bruce.
All right, Nick. Here we are on another Sunday night. It's a losing edition of Chatterbox Reds. Reds blanked 2-0 by the St. Louis Cardinals. And I know that I couldn't say this on the show yesterday, and I made the joke to you when we got off the show that this series is inevitably going to be a 2-2 split, and we've screamed and yelled. I've screamed and yelled and all this craziness. And people are going to be mad tonight, and I understand why. But it's a series split in St. Louis, 2-2, and you move forward. And it just seems like kind of the beat goes on. Anything to add kind of before we do the usual box score recap and jumping into, obviously, all of the sorts of topics that we have. I like that you have Willson Contreras on there, too, by the way. And, yeah, I don't have very nice things to say about him.
I thought that might be the only thing that might kind of fire you up tonight. Not a whole
Possibly.
lot, really. Not a whole lot, really, that I feel like it's really all that passionate tonight. So we had to kind of throw that in there to make it a little feisty.
Yeah, I mean, I can get going from time to time. I do think that there are some folks that probably lean into that a little too much from time to time. But you know what? I'm here for a reason, and my reason is to try to be a sounding board for some. That's my plan, at least. I guess we'll just jump right into it, really, before we get into too deep into the no pun intended, the deep dive. But before we get too deep into the subject matter, Nick. Just run us through the box score recap. I don't really know how much there is to recap considering there wasn't a whole lot of offense.
I got a couple paragraphs. We found a way. All right, Hunter Greene navigated around base runners in the first, second, and third innings. He threw a dominant fourth inning, had 2 strikeouts, but in the fifth, Greene gave up 3 singles. None of them were hard hit balls, and the Reds trailed 1-0. David Bell went to Sam Moll with 2 outs and the bases loaded to face the lefty Brendan Donovan, and he got a weak ground out to end that inning. Moll would give up a leadoff single to Nolan Arenado in the 6th, and then Arenado scored when Fernando Cruz gave up a double to Mason Wynn. That gave the Cardinals an insurance run that they didn't really need because the Reds only got 2 hits on Sunday. Cardinals starting pitcher Lance Lynn threw 6 shutout innings, and then the Cardinals bullpen was dominant. They retired the final 9 batters of the game. Reds settle for a series split despite outscoring the Cardinals 22-11 this weekend. Reds finished the month of June 14-13 and are now 39-45 on the season.
Nick at this point is trying to make sure that he makes the local crowd happy, apparently, which is fine. Kiss the babies, Nick. Kiss the babies. The deep drive of the day. Nick Northcutt hit his Southern League leading 15th home run of the year. The Chattanooga Lookouts, they're like 20-57. Regardless, they did defeat the Rocket City 7-2. Northcutt played at the Mason High School, the Comets, and the Reds acquired him for Tommy Pham. Remember him? He's the guy that slapped people over fantasy football. But if you didn't remember, Tommy Pham's actually playing pretty well. So shout out to Tommy. But the deep drive of the day is sponsored by DSC. And we all know at DSC, they are a leader in renewable commodities for biofuel production, specializing in used cooking oil collection, aggregation, and sales. Visit www.deepsouthcommodities.com for more information. All right. I know we have on here the very first thing, the series blah split. It was a big series, and I don't want to get overly frustrated by it. I don't want to get overly pessimistic by it. I don't want to sound like I'm never going to be pleased with this team. But I think I've come to grips with that this is who they are. And if you don't want to believe that, I understand, because ultimately it leaves a little bit of a bad taste in your mouth if this is what you actually believe they are. And that is an average team at best, a very mediocre offense at best. And you can blame whoever you want to blame for that. And I know that the blame has been literally passed everywhere, Nick. But they did split this series, which means it's not a disaster. I think I said before we went into the series, Nick, if they split, it feels like you just kind of push, you move on in the season. You're not dead yet. If they got swept, season was over, Nick. If they would have swept, then we would have been talking about, quite honestly, we've been talking about the postseason again and what we do with Marte being out when the postseason comes around. It's what a wild turn of events we can have here on Chatterbox Reds in a short period of time. But here we are, Nick, in the little series split.
Yeah, I was trying to find the number. I can't remember. I saw it once before. I think like 4-game series. I think it like 75% of the time ends in a split or something like that. So
I believe it.
You have to expect that coming in, even if you're a bad team, you're a good team. Like, it's just what happens the majority of the time. Certainly that game on Friday, probably the most frustrating out of all of them this weekend. But yeah, look, they kept themselves alive. And now they got another really tough series with the Yankees coming up. But after that, they do have a really good stretch up to the All-Star break that you hope that they can capitalize on.
Is it too much to say that I would like them to pick one side of the aisle here to figure out which lane they want to go down? And I know I say that little tongue in cheek. People are going to think that I'm kind of, like, oh, what an idiot. Do you think they're going to try to lose? No, I don't think they're going to try to lose, but I definitely at the deadline don't want to be in a spot, Nick, where you're kind of up in the air and you feel like I already know how this fan base is going to act. And I don't know, Nick, maybe you have it. Be interested how you feel about this. Like, I really hope that over time, the fan base and some of the media talking heads, and I know we're a part of that kind of, I hope it doesn't get to the front office in the sense that they're going to find themselves maybe at the deadline again, Nick, with a mediocre team at best. And people are going to be screaming and yelling about how they need to go out and get somebody at the deadline to give them a boost. They're only 2 games out of the playoffs. This team hasn't won a playoff series since 1995. We're going to hear the whole song and dance again, and I get why. But at the same time, this isn't this just, to me, I'll say it again, I just don't see it. I don't see it, and maybe it's because I'm too pessimistic in regards to the fact that Levi Jordan pinch hit today, Espinal pinch hit today. It's not a good spot to be. But I don't know how you feel about the whole situation with the deadline coming up. But if the Reds do get hot, Nick, it does feel like the front office is going to be a little bit of a tough spot, personally. And if they don't get hot, they actually have some pieces, Nick, that probably could yield some return that it would be wise to trade. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, look, there's only 2 teams right now in the National League that are going to be sellers. So you're pretty limited on the teams you can even trade with, and one of those teams already traded their best asset already. The Colorado Rockies. Is there really anyone that anyone wants off the Colorado Rockies?
The Marlins obviously got rid of the second baseman,
Luis Arise. So
yeah.
I know there's a few teams in the American League, but when you have this many teams that are going to be in playoff contention, there's not going to be a whole lot of sellers. So it would be a good idea if you can sell to sell. So I fully get what you're saying. Unless the Reds get crazy hot, I just don't see them being buyers of anything substantial. Unless they're like 2 games up or something. But getting 2 games up, being 4.5 back in a month seems pretty unlikely. So I think that you probably adding at the trade deadline, it's probably would be smarter just to get that out of your head because it's not going to happen. Yeah. And it's more likely the Reds sell than they buy, and I think by a wide margin. But I'm also not giving up on the season either.
mean, giving up on the season's one in which I think you say there's zero chance. I'm not going to give up on the season, but I'm also going to be realistic and say what I see. And what I see is clearly an incompetent offense, clearly an offense that has little to no big league outfielders. And I guess I'll jump into that here real quick because he's not really on the rundown in the back half. I obviously got a little back and forth today about the whole Stuart Fairchild stuff. I'm not here to try to say that Stuart Fairchild's like an unbelievable baseball player and there's no room for criticism. But I think we're at a point now where it's like, why do we keep picking on the one guy that's actually semi-decent out there? Gonna pick on somebody? How about, I don't know, maybe Jake Fraley? Maybe pick on him. Why don't you pick on TJ Friedl? He's out every other week. You did it with Nick Senzel. Let's talk about Will Benson. He literally is like, I mean, he's terrible. We all love him, but he's terrible. Levi Jordan's out there. I mean, at this point, is Espinal an outfielder? I don't know. Levi Jordan has never played outfield. Espinal's never played outfield, but they're in the outfield. Now, I know people are going to kill Nick Krall for some of this, and I'm not saying Nick Krall is not to blame at all, Nick, but there should be a real hard conversation, and I'm not honestly intellectual, or I don't say intellectual. I'm not intelligent enough to know. I've not paid attention to the farm system enough to know, Nick. If Nick Krall was the reason that there's a significant gap between what the Reds have right now, obviously at a quadruple A / big league level, and call it single A, where clearly there's some talent in Dayton. I don't know if I have that answer. Maybe you feel strongly one way or the other about that. It's just it's always somebody. It's either David Bell or Nick Krall's fault or someone else. Like, what about Jake Fraley? Like, can Jake Fraley not get any of the blame here? Jake Fraley is a guy that came into this season that, was pretty solid in regards to what you come to expect from him. He was supposed to be one of the periods, not the question marks, of this roster, and he's been a no-show. And you can say whatever you want, and I like TJ Friedl's a no-show next guy, but also a no-show. And I get it, you can't predict injuries, Vic, but why do we always want to pick on genuinely, maybe, like the brightest spot of the outfield? Now, might not be the best player, but at least it's something. I don't know.
Yeah, I would say the biggest reason right now why there's a gap is the Reds 2020 draft was atrocious. And I mean, I guess if there's 1 year that you can get a pass for having a bad draft, it's that, when there was only 5 rounds, when you couldn't go see players. There was a lot. I mean, the number 1 pick in that draft was Spencer Torkelson, who's looks like, I think every Tigers fan wants him thrown in the ocean right now. So I mean, I think that's probably the biggest contributor to why there's a gap right now. But it's exactly why you can't just go trade your prospects for rental players, because then you're going to have a gap at some point, and the Reds aren't going to be able to spend their way to make up for those gaps. Even if the Reds, like look at the Chicago Cubs right now. I mean, the Chicago Cubs have a substantially higher payroll, but it doesn't matter because they're still not spending $300 million. So, I mean, I really think unless you're one of the top 5 spenders, which I don't think there's any rational Reds fan that ever thinks that that's even a reality or something that should happen, you have to dig deep with prospects and you have to keep them. So, I mean, you just hope that you do this long enough, you continue to, be able to work around it, but you're still going to have years where things just don't work out. And I don't, you could say whatever you want about this year, but there's going to be, years down the road. Like, look at the Cleveland Guardians. I mean, that team won 78 games last year. They turn around this year and they have the best record in baseball, pretty much the exact same roster.
Yeah. And I mean, the other thing too to add is I don't think anyone on this show, and I guess I'll speak for Craig as well, and I don't think we've ever thought that this team, for lack of a better term, this year was going to basically be like a runaway train, guaranteed clinch to make the postseason. We were excited about certainly the young group, but when the young group isn't there, what's what is there actually left to be super critical of I even like I get there needs to be some blame somewhere, right? Like the buck stops at the top. You're going to blame Nick Krall. You're going to blame David Bell. But I guess I see Pat in the chat is like 652 OPS deserves criticism. Stop acting like he's good in regards to Fairchild. I just said he's not. I just said he's not a great player. I don't come to the game and be like, wow. Why in the hell is Stuart Fairchild not Jim Edmonds this year? I thought that's what we got. It'd be like almost like in a weird way, like in a weird way. Pat, did you watch what's the backup quarterback's name? Jake Browning. Did you watch Jake Browning play football this year? And you're like, I can't believe they didn't have a backup serviceable enough to replace Joe Burrow. Like, why the hell can't he make the same throws Joe Burrow can make? I just don't get it. Get someone better. Yeah, okay, well, yeah, it's kind of hard to do that. I don't know if you've looked around the league, but if you have 3 or 4 or 5 of your outfielders that are basically non-existent or aren't playing up to their level, it's hard to replace them with 3 or 4 or 5 more. That doesn't happen. I mean, there's a team in this division right now that spends a boatload of money. I think they spend $10 million on a manager because a manager is so damn important. I must find out that a manager is so important that the manager that was so damn good went from the Brewers and then he went to the Cubs, got paid $10 million with supposedly a better roster, and now they're in the last place. Yet I look over from the team that he just left, and they're in first place by a wide margin, I might add. So I'm not trying to sit here and suggest that everything's perfect, but I also want somebody to be somewhat realistic, and I do get tired of seeing the same old stuff where it's like, Fairchild this, Fairchild that. And maybe, again, I got to sit here and be the guy that's just going to take a beating because I'm trying to say that, hey, of all of the guys, maybe Fairchild's not the one to be picking on. Maybe it's the fact that our 2 through 5 hitters today were 0 for. Maybe it's just the fact that Candelario isn't healthy all the time. TJ Friedel, again, not healthy. Marte, gone for PEDs. Now he's starting to catch some heat. Hell, Marte didn't catch any heat all year long. Comes back for 2 games, Nick doesn't get a hit, and all of a sudden, Marte, you're a piece of shit. Explain that to me. McLean, nobody says a damn thing about McLean. Hasn't been around literally in about a year and a half. So what do you want? What do you want? I mean, honestly, at this point, if you want to win the fan base over, just get hurt.
Or suspended.
Or take steroids. That's even a better idea. At least you'll be strong.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's
a lot of that's tongue-in-cheek, by the way, if you can't see that. Go ahead, Nick.
But I mean, yeah, really, when you look at this roster, there's only 2 players that are healthy that have underperformed significantly. Steer maybe a little bit, but I don't think it's enough to really be too upset about. It's Fraley and Benson. Those are the only 2 players that are healthy that have underperformed. The rest
Luke
are just
Maley,
all
too,
guys.
kind of, be honest.
Yeah, he's a backup catcher, though. So
I don't care. When you play, you got to be somewhat serviceable.
I guess.
I'm just saying, Nick, put it this way, Nick. If Luke Maley played the same he played last year, I bet the Reds win 1 or 2 more games than they did.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
That's all I'm saying.
That's fair. But again, it's not like there's this whole lineup full of guys that have underperformed that you have active right now. Pretty much everyone has done just about what you would expect. That was in the starting lineup today. So it's
right.
It's 3 guys that are hurt and 3 just brutal guys. I mean, 3 of the top 5 or 6 players on the entire roster going into the year.
Well, I mean, today, okay, I know it was a swinging miracle that he got a hit, but Fairchild gets a hit. He delays steals, heads up play, gets to second base with 1 out. I can't help that nobody else can drive him in. I can't help that Luke Maley can't get him in with 2 outs. If he gets him in with 2 outs, Nick, we'd be talking about how great of a play that was. It was a really smart play. Shout out to Fairchild for stealing second base. But no, not going to give him credit for that. Anyways, Hunter Greene, you'll talk about something positive? I don't know if it's positive or negative anymore, to be honest with you. I feel sorry for Hunter Greene. I don't know what he's done to deserve the lack of run support, and or every time this guy throws the ball incredibly well, it feels like there's nothing to show for it. Now, maybe I'm wrong. I'm sure you can go back through their archives, Nick, but it just feels like every big start that I can remember him having to where he's absolutely dealt, he's been let down by the offense and or the defense, quite honestly.
4 times this season, the Reds have been shut out in the game that Hunter Greene started. 8 out of his 17 starts, 8 out of 17, they've scored 2 runs or less. So, yeah, it's been brutal for Hunter Greene. It's got to be tough to constantly pitch with such a small margin for error. I thought he threw the ball fine today. If the Reds had scored a couple runs, he gets through that 5th inning and his line looks a little bit better. And people go, oh, he went 5 innings instead of 4 2/3 because that somehow going 5 innings is like such a benchmark or whatever. I thought David Bell made the right decision there, going to Sam Moll. You have a day off tomorrow. This is the kind of game you want to go for it a little bit more. And, it worked there, but it didn't matter in the long run. But if the Reds had scored a run or 2, then, I think that move is maybe the top talking point of the day on this show.
I also think that Mole needed to get one of the 2 right-handed guys out. He clearly overmatched the 2 left-handed hitters that came up to the plate. They didn't stand literally a chance. And unfortunately, what's the kid's name that literally is hitting $125 this year? Had 3 hits. What's his name?
Austin Wins. No, it's the Cardinals backup catcher.
Yeah, right. The Cardinals backup catcher. Regardless, kid got 3 hits today, and I'm not saying that it was lucky, but it was kind of a cap shot, if you want to call it that, center field. It was a hit, so give him credit. Unfortunately, Mole wasn't able to get out of it, and then Cruz's honestly hit that he gave up wasn't really, that was just a good piece of hitting, and you got to tip your cap a little bit. And at some point, the Reds got to do that in order to win. But Hunter Greene threw the ball incredibly well. I did think, and one thing that I did like out of this, which is maybe weird, is you could see him pleading his case with David Bell, though, at least. You could tell he put his glove over his mouth, seemed pretty stern on what he was trying to get across to David Bell. It didn't matter because David Bell had already made up his mind clearly. And how many times do pitchers talk managers out of making a decision? Very rarely, if ever. The one that I vividly remember is when Pedro Martinez, shout out back in the day, decided he was going to try to stick it out, and that did not pay off for the Red Sox. But nonetheless, it was just nice to see that he was fighting to stay in the game. And then when they made the decision that he was coming out of the game, I'll be honest, Nick, the thing that I was most appreciative of, he didn't really throw a pity party. You know what I'm saying? Like he accepted it, and then he was standing on the top of the dugout, whether he was rooting his guys on or whether he wanted to see if those runs came in to count towards his ERA. I don't know, but I do know he was there. He was watching. He looked like a team player.
Yeah, I mean, look, you want Hunter Greene to want the ball there, but that also, and I had tweeted it out earlier, I mean, that was the poster child of, the emotion. I saw like 5 people on Twitter when they put, I want Hunter Greene to be able to get there. And as a baseball fan, you do. Like, I'm not saying that's wrong, but you're like, oh, I want to see Hunter Greene get that last out, finish on a high note. Like, you want that. But if you actually like take a step back and that's a terrible move. You bring in Mole against a lefty, and good to see David Bell not falling into the emotional trap there. Because I think David Bell has done that at times. I think there's been a few times where David Bell has made some emotional moves to try to because he's a player's manager.
Yep. Did it with Ashcraft. Backfired.
And he didn't here today. And if the Reds had won that game, again, it'd be a huge talking point tonight.
Yeah. Mid-ice Jew. I'm trying to think. There really wasn't anything that was controversial today outside the fact that the whole Levi Jordan, pinch hit, Espinal. I don't know, man. Pinch hit and Espinal there seemed kind of like a little bit of a stretch, personally.
So it was Stuart Fairchild against a right-handed pitcher.
Yep, bringing a lefty.
Cardinals, so the Reds pinch hit Martini. Cardinals counter, bringing a lefty. Then the Reds go back to Santiago Espinal.
Yeah.
I mean, the numbers would probably tell you that Espinal versus a left-handed pitcher is better than Fairchild versus a right-handed pitcher. The only thing I will say about that move is the one thing that, and maybe David Bell almost wanted them to kind of do that. He was thinking ahead because that was a logical thing. But I remember Sadak said that Martini's on deck like when the batter before his at bat started. So maybe what you should have done in that spot is you should have waited and let Fairchild stay in the on deck circle and have Martini kind of hidden. And then when Fairchild comes up to the plate and he's like all the way up to the plate, then you bring in Martini at the last second. Because Sadak mentioned on the broadcast that Romero, their lefty, he was like, is he even hot? Because they waited to get him warm. So maybe you should have done that, and then you could have had Martini get a chance against a right-handed pitcher. Because I think that would honestly be the best scenario out of the three options that you had there. Because obviously Martini has the best chance of tying the game up on one swing. So that would maybe be the only thing, but I don't know. Maybe David Bell didn't think that he would be able to pull one over on Ollie Marmol, so he was just, that was his thought process of how it was going to play out.
Well, I think we're grasping for straws a little bit here, but I'm playing this out in a very hypothetical situation. But let's just say, for instance, it's a at the time I think it was a 1-run game. Maybe it was a 2-run game. I don't remember.
I think it was 2. It was 2. Because I remember thinking in my head, Espinal needs to hit a home run to tie the game. I was like, that's probably not going to happen.
And that was where I was at. It's almost like Martini, even though lefty on lefty is probably not even still ideal. I guess in my brain, it tells me that Martini can get lucky and run into one. It feels like Espinal is incapable of doing that, even though I know he's hit home runs. I'm not trying to say that he's incapable of hitting one out. But point is, the other side of this equation as well, where I wouldn't have done that, is that if you'd have found yourself in a tie game late in the game, or a situation where you need kind of somebody to run for somebody, you've exhausted already everybody, Nick. There was literally nobody left. Now, I don't know. You could say maybe a reliever could run for somebody, but I'm just kind of hypothetically throwing it out there. If you got Luke Maley on, second base or whatever with one out, and you're down by one, you kind of feel like you need a pinch runner there. You're left with literally nobody, right? I'm doing this in my head. I did it during the game, and I know it didn't matter, but I'm just saying, like, that's something to think about towards the end of the game that I don't think David Bell was thinking all the way through. And sometimes that'll happen. And I'm not trying to make excuses for David Bell. It's his job to know. But to be fair to David Bell, he hasn't really had the same roster here and there as of late at all. It's like one guy's here, the next guy's gone, and probably turns around time to time. It's like, oh, that's right, I don't have him anymore. I don't know. I know I shouldn't say that out loud because it sounds like I'm making excuses for David Bell, but that's my point.
I think in fairness to how that played out, I think in David Bell's head, he's saying, I've got to try to tie the game right now, because if we don't, we're not scoring off Ryan Helsley. I think he converted his 30th consecutive save today. I mean, this guy's been unbelievable. So I think that was where it was at. In hindsight, he probably should have either waited to bring up Martini, like I laid out, or just let Fairchild hit. Because while Fairchild is very bad against right-handed pitchers, he still does have the ability to accidentally get a hold of one. We saw it against Ryan Helsley just 2 days ago. So he probably should have done one or the other, but again, we're really grasping for straws. We're arguing, should you have gone to Martini, Fairchild, or Santiago Espinal?
Yeah.
I mean, what are we doing?
Exactly. And that's where everybody starts getting pissed at Nick Krall. And I think that's a fair point. I mean, I got to be honest. It's a semi-fair point that David Bell he doesn't have a lot at his disposal right now. And you know what? I just think that at some point, Krall will pull the trigger on what exactly he feels like he needs. And I would not be shocked in the slightest if they decide that they need to find some semblance of a center fielder. And I know that sounds crazy because TJ Friedel, this, that, and the next, but I think it's been proven clear as day to me that they need to go get a center fielder, period, point blank. And from there, if TJ Friedel's healthy, that's great. That's great. He can play one of the corner positions, and maybe we'll have a really great outfield. But I would love for them to find a center fielder. I know that they don't grow on trees, but we'll see what they end up doing we all can agree that the Reds need to have a better outfield headed into the 2025 season. Who knows? Maybe even the late 2024 season. We'll see. Trade deadline's not over. You never know. Now, I'm not holding my breath, but I'm just saying. All right. Well, Willson Contreras, I seen this during the day. I mean, I got to be honest, Nick. This is the most ridiculous thing I've seen. This guy tries to get hit, okay, 2 or 3 times in the at-bat. Literally sticking his if you want to get me going, I guess if you want me to go, I can go if you want me to go. Because I mean, here's the thing with Willson Contreras. I put it out there. You got to be a douchebag basically in order to be that must be the prerequisite to be a catcher for the St. Louis Cardinals. Now, having said that, I do think that Yadier Molina, unbelievable player, like awesome player. I wish Yadier Molina played for the Reds. I get it. You know, he's kind of one of those guys, you love him when he's on your team, but everyone else kind of sees him for what he is, kind of a little bit of a dirtbag. However, great player. Not taking anything away from him. Willson Contreras today, I don't know what exactly he was doing. He's sitting there with his elbow guard. That's my favorite thing about all this is these guys act like tough guys. They got an elbow guard on, and they're sticking they're chicken winging their elbow out there, trying to get hit on the elbow with the guard on there because ultimately it just doesn't hurt. It obviously doesn't hurt bad if you're willing to stick your elbow out there. I'd like you to see you stick your elbow out there when it doesn't have any padding on it and see if you're still doing that. Because I know this, if you get hit in the elbow guard after you've already attempted to try to get hit 2 or 3 times already in the at-bat, and then you get hit, and then you want to try to act like a tough guy, you are an absolute pansy. You're a pansy. You're a poser. You're a loser. Call it whatever you want. You're nobody. I wouldn't be getting beers with that guy, okay? Because it's like, oh, Mr. Tough Guy. Yeah, wait, you didn't have any confidence enough to get a hit, so you stuck your elbow out there. Also, just so you know, I didn't forget the night before when you tried to show up the umpire because you thought that there was a pitch that was a ball and it was actually a strike, and then you got a hit because of it because you had to come back to the plate after you threw your bat acting like it was a walk, and then you were all mad at the umpire like, wow, I can't believe you called that a strike. Hey, I don't know if you know, Willson, but we got this thing called StatCast, and we got all these metrics, and we got all this data. We can see if it's a ball or a strike. So before you start running your mouth all the time, maybe you should check to see before you, I don't know, make a fool of yourself thinking that it was an actual ball when it was a strike. Just so you know. Just saying. This isn't the first D-bag move of the series. Now, I don't know Willson Contreras. I have no clue. I don't watch him all the time. Now, I do know he came from the Cubs, so he probably didn't, he probably didn't win too many brownie points from me there. But at the end of the day, what exactly was the point in getting mad at Hunter Greene when you already tried to get yourself hit 2 times in that at bat? I'll never know that. I'll never understand that, ever.
Yeah, clearly Hunter Greene's not trying to hit him with a pitch in that spot either. I don't have an issue with guys that occasionally get upset at getting hit by a pitch because obviously it doesn't feel good. Even if you have padding on, obviously it's still frustrating. But it's every single time that I've ever seen this guy get hit by a pitch, it's like the world is ending. That's the problem. If this was an occasional thing, whatever. If this was today, oh man, I just came off the IL, whatever. I'll be like, hey, whatever. He's just upset about it. But it's every single time this guy gets hit by a pitch. It's like it's everyone's trying to being out to get him. It's just
right.
He's a wild player. Sam LaCure said he's on the all tired team. I thought that was fantastic. On the post game show, the all tired team. So shout out to Sam. That was a good one.
Yeah, I mean, listen, he's obviously a pretty decent player. I'm not here to suggest that he's not, but I mean,
I'd take him.
Being a decent player and being a loser, they don't always go. They don't always like have to be one or the other. Sometimes you can be both. I think he's both. Just saying. So there's that. I don't know. That's what we got on Willson Contreras. Shout out to all the Cardinals fans in my DMs and chat talking about how Willson Contreras is worth more than our entire franchise. I don't know what the hell that means. Cardinals are a good organization, so it's hard to kind of, when you're a Reds fan, it's kind of hard to go bat for bat from the organization perspective. I do want to remind them, though, we have the Big Red Machine, baby. Don't forget. All right.
My hope with the Cardinals. My hope with the Cardinals is this. All right, that team they have a decent team. I'm not saying they don't, but their run differential is pissing me off. They have the 8th toughest schedule remaining in baseball. So I'm hoping that in the second half that corrects itself in a beautiful, beautiful way. Reds are 24th, in case you were wondering.
All right. I don't know.
We'll see. It doesn't matter. I mean,
I know it doesn't matter.
It matters, but it doesn't matter. Like it does, but it doesn't. It's one of those.
Well, the Reds are a perfect example as to why you can get snake bitten by the run differential. You win 11-3, and then you turn around and you lose 2 games by a combined 3 runs. I mean, it's like I don't know. It's frustrating for sure, but maybe it'll all correct itself by year end. But sometimes it doesn't, and yeah, run differential is what it is. I don't think it matters a significant amount, but I agree what you're trying to say. At the end of the day, how long can they keep getting away with winning baseball games closely and then getting basically the break speed off of them? Seems like that might even out at some point. All right, 988 text call if you need it. Mantherapy.org as always. Game time. Sunday night. There's no trying to think if there's anything on the horizon here. I know that obviously the Reds they got some baseball coming up here in July at home. I also know that FC's probably playing some soccer, I think. I don't know for sure. But nonetheless, Nick, if you need tickets, where do you go?
A 10-game homestand starting next Friday. Tigers, Rockies, and someone else bad.
Sounds like the wins. Marlins, maybe?
Yeah, Marlins. Yep. That's it. Tigers, Rockies, and Marlins. So right up to the All-Star break. So if you want to head down to those series, I think you should. Of course, you want to use the Game Time app because it's an authorized ticket marketplace in Major League Baseball. That makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app, they actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all in pricing views from your seat, and the lowest price guaranteed. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. They have all-in pricing. You can toggle this feature, and it shows you the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Lowest price guaranteed, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code CINCY for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code CINCY, C-I-N-C-Y, for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Guaranteed. All right, speaking of a guy who's hotter than a firecracker right now, I tell you what, man, I know that you put that stat out earlier today. You put out the doubles. Jonathan India. It's one thing to be kind of like getting on base at a high clip. It's another thing to not only be getting on base, but then he's slugging for what? I mean, he's hitting so many balls hard and with some pop and power that this has to be the best stretch of baseball Jonathan India has ever played in his entire life. Now, to be fair, I've not seen what he did at Florida. I'd assume that he played pretty well there at times. But to play this well, this long, we're starting to kind of get to a point now where you like to think, Nick, like it or not, Jonathan India has some value, brother.
Yeah, India finished the month of June with a 1,041 OPS. That's his best month of his entire big league career. That was the second best was 998 in July 2021. This is only the second time that he's had an OPS in a month over 900. This is the first month that he's had an OPS over 800. Over 800 since July 2022. So he went August, September, whole 2023, didn't have a month over 800, and then he pulls out a 1,000 month. So an incredible month for Jonathan India. He extended his Reds record 8 consecutive games with a double. He's a doubles machine. Doubles are power. Doubles are power.
Doubles are power.
Yeah, I mean, we think power is home runs. Well, doubles are power too. 2 doubles equals 1 home run. It's pretty simple math there.
Yep.
But yeah, I just one of the most unbelievable turnarounds I've seen. Like, with young players, you kind of expect as ups and downs, and Jonathan India was kind of getting past the point of being young into this is what he is.
Right.
And then somehow he's flipped. It's a reminder, even, people like me that are the most optimistic people about some of these guys. I wasn't even optimistic about Jonathan India. It's still a game where, there's a human element and guys figuring things out and learning on the fly and, getting better when you think they're dead or you think they're great. They come back down to earth. Jonathan India is a perfect example of you really can't predict baseball.
No, it just shows you how valuable players are that can consistently produce at a high level year in, year out. Like you take those, not that I'd say you take those players for granted around the league, but really at this point, a superstar would be a player that you can at least get some consistency out of, because it feels like in the game that we've kind of evolved into here, the modern day game, consistency doesn't exist, at least maybe from a perception standpoint, nearly as much as it has in the past, and I know that maybe some to do with the fact that the competition, in my opinion, is higher. I know that some old players may disagree with that to a certain extent, but it just seems like the talent pool that exists in Major League Baseball is so high now, from a pitching perspective specifically, that I just think it's a lot more difficult to be consistent at the plate like you could have been in the past. We'll see if India is able to he's not ever going to stay this hot, clearly, but we'll see if he can kind of, instead of it be a massive drop-off, Nick, if he can at least kind of stay in a what we'll call an average level big league hitter for the rest of the year. And I also think it also brings up the last point. Now, I don't mean to make this much of a talking point today, Nick, because I don't think it's deserved. And I'm very thankful that Jonathan India is playing great for the Reds. But I do think that there's something to be said about the deadline and what you do with a situation that might present itself with Jonathan India. I know you don't think that he's going to yield a whole lot in return. I do think that if he's playing well, I think that there will be a team that will overcommit. And I think at this point, I know people were going to hate me for saying this because we're tired of waiting, and we're tired of waiting. I just think that it's very clear that there's going to be a lot of teams that are going to be buyers at the deadline, and you can use that to your advantage if you're one of the teams that's willing to maybe kind of punt, or not, maybe punt's the wrong word, but you're willing to at least say, hey, if we make the postseason this year, that's going to be fantastic, but we also know that we are not where we need to be, and the only way to get where we need to be is to make this type of move. And I know that Reds fans will hate that, etc., but that's just how I personally feel. If you want to crush me for that, you can crush me for that, but I think that's where the Reds find themselves, and I think India is certainly going to be a guy that's going to yield some interest for some teams that are going to be desperate. Simply put.
The India situation is just so complex for so many reasons when we get to the trade deadline. First off, he's still got a month. So
yeah, that's a lot of time.
So what does he do in July? If you told me Jonathan India is going to have a 500 OPS in July, or Jonathan India is going to have another 900 OPS in July, I'd be like, yeah, I could see either one happening. I have no idea. I agree. Look, the more I think about it, yes, it's definitely going to be a seller's market. There's no debate about that. But the Reds had every reason to try to trade him, and by all accounts did everything they could to try to trade him this offseason and weren't given anything. Most GMs, outside of maybe a few irrational ones, aren't going to look at 3 months of a baseball season and have a completely different opinion. So, I don't know. But then you also have to think at the same time, all the players that have disappointed this year, you still have Jonathan India at a very cheap cost for the next 2 years. So, I don't know. I'm almost like talking myself into, well, I mean, all these other guys are performing. You're not going to be able to replace Jonathan India on the free agent market if you try to get Jonathan India, the exact same player on the free agent market, he's going to cost 4 times what he cost.
Yes. So that means you believe in him, though.
It all comes down to, what is a team offering? If a team's offering me a 19-year-old lottery ticket down in Daytona, I don't know if I'm moving Jonathan India for that.
No.
If they're giving me, something that I can really feel good about, and I'm not talking like a top 50 prospect or even maybe a top 75 prospect, but if I'm getting something back that I feel really good about, yeah, I think you have to do it. But if it's just like we're just trying to get whatever we can get, I don't know if I move him.
Well, if you don't move him at the trade deadline, in my opinion, then you're not going to move him at all. I just think that if he's playing well, like he has been right now, listen, whenever you're making a deal in your life, right? When you're trading something or you're selling something or whatever it is, there's risk involved every single time. Every single time. Now, what degree of risk? Obviously, that can vary. But the main point is the most successful people don't get caught up in emotions. They don't get caught up in, what's right in front of them. And I think that there will be someone at the deadline that is going to be a buyer, Nick. And my prayer is that they're going to have a deficiency in the area in which Jonathan India can help, and they will overextend themselves. They will 100% overextend themselves. We have seen it in the past. And at this point, again, I don't know what possibly they could yield in return for Jonathan India, but I would be willing to bet at whatever you're going to be offered at this trade deadline will be the highest that you will ever be offered for Jonathan India, ever. And I guess to your point, you could look at the statistics and you could say, okay, this is how much he's making. This is a good value for the Reds. You want to keep him, etc. I would just push back and say this one thing. I'm not disparaging Jonathan India in any regard, but I'm going to say out loud that the reality is that if this team is going to be a team in which you are going to feel confident about making a great run into the postseason and or you're one of the best teams in the league, close your ears. Jonathan India is not going to be your second baseman. And that's that. I know some people might hate me for saying that, and some people are going to say, oh, you look at all these prospects and look at what they've gotten you. I understand that too. But at the end of the day, if you're not willing to move off of a guy when he's hot, then you're never going to yield something of value in return. And that happened to a lot of guys as well. Like a lot of guys we moved on from. Jesse Winker, when we moved him, not a very valuable, not a very, very highly liked thing in the city. Decided not to take Nick Castellanos. Decided to trade Luis Castillo. Now, I get that there's going to be some people that are like, oh, that trade, well, what are you bragging about that for? I'm just saying in general terms, be patient in regards to the fact that, you're sitting here acting like the Castillo trade's a complete, utter disgrace. We'll see. There's a lot of years left. There's a lot of years left on the value that they got in return for that. So, and I know people are tired of being patient, and I'm not sitting here saying that they could go make some moves in the offseason to help shore up some of the outfield, et cetera. But if you're not going to trade any at this deadline, Nick, you're never going to trade him. I'll leave it at that. And if you do trade him, you're never going to get nearly the value you would have at this deadline. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's going to come down to what he does in July. I honestly think if he doesn't perform well in July, I'm more willing to settle on trading him for a lesser return. But if he shows something to me in July where I'm like, man, I don't know, maybe this guy has figured something out, and maybe I'm drinking the Kool-Aid here. Again, how many hitters
don't drink it.
Well, again, how many hitters do the Reds need to add this offseason? 3? For us to feel good about the Reds.
For us to feel good about the Reds, I'm going to say, here's where I'm at. CES is going to have to be a pretty good player. McLean's going to have to be healthy and be semi close to what he needs to be. And Marte, you know it and I know it, he needs to be relatively pretty good as well. We're only talking, I know people are going to kill me for saying this, we're only talking a couple outfield spots, Nick. We're not that far off. All right, I know people are going to crush me for saying that. People are going to kill me for saying that. But if this team is healthy, and I know that's a big if, but that's what we're playing with here, Nick. That's what we're playing with. Like my point to you is, if you want me to do a cross reference, if you're a Xavier Musketeer basketball fan, right? If you're a Xavier Musketeer basketball fan, at the end of this season, do you not look back and say, you know what? If we would have just had the guys that Sean Miller thought we were going to have at the beginning of the year, we would have been an NCAA tournament team, and you would have. You don't have to sit here and act like the sky is falling when you're like, oh my God, we have nobody. The reality is we have some guys. Okay, we need some outfielders, and we need some guys to play a little bit better or be healthy. And I get that that's a big if. But you know what? If we don't get what I just said, Nick, it doesn't matter what you get in return. That's how I feel, at least. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah. But again, however many players, this I guess is more of a broad thing, not just for you. But if we're to wrap up this conversation, from my opinion, however many players you think the Reds need to add offensively next year, if you trade Jonathan India, add one more to that, and then remember that Jonathan India only costs $5 million. Getting the exact same player as Jonathan India probably costs you close to $15 million. So that's, I think, where you have to kind of add all this together. But again, if someone's going to offer you a legit prospect, no brainer, you move him. But if we're talking in the fringes, I don't know. I don't think you move him just to move him. So, but there's so much that can happen, as we saw 100 times this year already. There is so much that can happen from June 30th to July 30th. Hell, the Reds may go on a 10-game win streak, and we're thinking about buying everyone. The Reds could lose every game, and Jonathan India falls completely flat on his face, and we're like, whatever, move him for a 17-year-old from Taiwan.
I just think that you remember another second baseman that played for the Reds that had a pretty good little run?
Scooter Gennett.
And you might have been able to get something for him. And everybody was like, wow, oh my God, maybe he's figured something out. I don't know. Maybe he's this unbelievable player. Well, you got a lot in return for him, didn't you? Scooter Gennett. I'm not suggesting that Jonathan India doesn't deserve more respect than Scooter Gennett. I'm just openly saying, for those who want to say that I'm hindsight 2020 guy, I'm just openly telling you that I like trading stocks when everybody else in the world thinks that they're going to explode and they're a little higher value than they've been for the last 25 years. I like selling then. I don't like trying to buy GameStop after it's been out for a year that everybody's like, wow, oh my God, GameStop, let's take it to the moon. You're going to buy GameStop for $250 a share? One good idea. See how that works out for you. I'm okay with trading Jonathan India at the deadline because I think that's the highest value you'll ever get. And I personally feel like he's not really a part of the core of the team that can take this. If we don't win the World Series, Nick, I guess my point is, and I know this is a long stretch conversation right now, if we don't win the World Series, everyone's going to be upset at some point about something. You can say whatever you want, and yeah, the Reds win a postseason series, like we're all going to feel great about it. Look at the Bengals. They're a perfect example in this city what happens when you win. They obviously couldn't find a way to win a postseason game for a long, long time. They beat the Raiders, and then all of a sudden they turn around and they go to the Super Bowl. And then they turn around and go to the AFC Championship game. And then now, what are the expectations anymore? They're not what they're not, no longer is making the postseason and win a playoff game good like it was a couple years ago, I might add. Now it's Super Bowl or basically be pissed off or be upset that you didn't win the Super Bowl. That's the same thing that will happen to your baseball team. Now, I know we're a long way to get there, but my main point is, in saying all this, is that the goal is to win the World Series. And if you look at this team and you watch this team every single day and you're suggesting to me that they shouldn't be sellers at the deadline, I'm sorry. We're not watching the same thing.
I don't agree. I mean, again, it just depends on what the next month is. There is no way this team should be selling with the rotation that they have if they're within a game of the wild card race. And ultimately that could backfire on the Reds, but you cannot punt when you have this rotation that's healthy as it is, especially if Nick Lodolo gets through this blister issue and he's healthy at the trade deadline and you're within a couple games. I get it. You can think the offense sucks as much as you can, but that is not a rotation that grows on trees. That's not a rotation that you just fall into. The Reds have a dynamite rotation, and I really believe it. And this is not, I said this at the beginning of the year, and I know I said this at the beginning of the year. I felt like the Reds' pitching depth was better suited for 162, and it might wear teams down like the St. Louis Cardinals when you get into August, when the St. Louis Cardinals have to dip down to God knows who in their rotation because they don't have the kind of depth that the Reds have. So I don't know. If the Reds are within a game, I think you ride this thing out, and maybe it completely falls in your face in the second half, but maybe you luck into the playoffs like the Arizona Diamondbacks, and then anything can happen.
Maybe. I mean, it's really hard to be the guy. It's hard to be me in this spot because everyone's going to think that I'm the jerk saying that they shouldn't go for it. Of course, I want them to go for it and win baseball games. I guess I'm looking at it from the standpoint that I really want a good, consistent team, and if that means I gotta wait another maybe year to get another good team versus sitting on our hands expecting Jonathan India to perform at the same level in which he's performed and also playing a different position, I might add. I don't know what position he's going to play, but we'll move on. We have plenty of months ahead that we can talk about Jonathan India in the whole trade discussion. But I guess I just wanted to get out in front of it and say, listen, I just need him to play this well for at least another 20, 25 days. And if he can do that, baby, let's ride off into the sunset. That's all. We need to retire the number. I'll retire the number if that's what it takes.
So Trace, let's move on to Alexis Diaz, who has a 1.90 ERA over his last 15 games.
Yeah,
should we trade him at the trade deadline?
I mean, not a bad idea, to be honest.
I honestly think I might be more team trade Diaz than
Let's
India.
just trade them all, baby. Let's get prospects. Let's see if we can't make the Chattanooga Lookouts. Instead of them finishing 20-62 this year, let's get them up to 40 wins next year.
Let's go, baby. Let's go.
People are going to hate us for doing this.
Lookouts are going to be loaded next year. They're going to get all those Daytona players. They're going to be the team to watch. They better fix that stream, man, because there's like a black bar on the side. It is brutal. It's like lagging. Chatterbox needs to take over the Chattanooga Lookouts broadcast. It is brutal. It is the most miserable thing. I cannot believe it's a double-A broadcast. Like, I maybe get it if this is low A. You're in double-A. You're in the Southern League, baby. Have a little bit of pride in that broadcast, because what I had to watch today, and when I try to watch Chase Petty, it is unacceptable. Get it together, Chattanooga.
Hey, you need Toxic Nick to come out. You just put together a piss-poor broadcast of minor league baseball. It'll come roaring out. Heaven forbid Nick not be able to see his prospects in HD. How many frames was it? Were they like skipping across the screen? Just
it felt like negative frames. If there's a negative frame rate, it's that. Whatever was going on. Brutal. I'm telling you, if you have MILB TV, pull up their broadcast. There's like this bar in the side that's like, and it's got like their score bug has like, it's not centered.
You're so pissed about this. I've never seen you so upset. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, hell, Nick Kroll and David Bell could get caught for money laundering, and you'd be like, well, they're good guys. But I'll tell you what, have you seen the Lookouts broadcast? What piss poor operation they got going on down there?
And they were the only minor league team in action today. So I had to be focused on it. I had the Reds game on one TV. I had Chattanooga on the other TV, and I keep looking over, and my God.
Oh, man. Well, they probably seen Austin Hendrick take a couple rounds of batting practice, and they're like, cut the broadcast budget. Anyways.
He was off today. He didn't even want to play under these circumstances.
He's been off for a couple years, Nick. I don't know if you've been paying attention. All right, Alexis Diaz, you want to say something nice about him? I'm thankful that he's throwing the ball well. All right, I am. I'm glad he's throwing the ball well. And if nothing else, it's just one of those things where I'm tired of sitting here talking about how great guys have played when ultimately it doesn't. I don't say it doesn't matter, but they don't capitalize on it. The Reds haven't capitalized on it because they have an offense that's atrocious.
Yeah, well, it's good to see Diaz pitch well, especially today, because it felt like today was the one type of game where he struggled the most. A game where the Reds were down 2-0. He's just getting some work. It was nice to see him just throw a really nice, clean inning today. I don't think we need to go overboard and be like, yeah, Alexis Diaz, man, he's the best closer in the league or anything. But I think that the early season struggles are behind him, and we at least have a competent closer. I don't know if we have a all-star closer, or even a whatever the right below that is, but I think we have a competent closer. I think we should feel at least a little bit confident going forward, which matters because, like I've said, the Reds have got a 10-game stretch coming up where this is their best chance to really make a run at it, and the last thing you can have is some of these games get blown by your closer in the 9th inning.
Yeah, Alexis Diaz is in a tough spot this year because ultimately, at the end of the day, if you're pitching for a baseball team that doesn't produce or yield a lot of runs, it definitely feels like you're going to be put in some really, you're going to be put in some spots where when you blow the lead a 2 or 3 run lead at that of a team that doesn't seem to have many 2 or 3 run leads, you're going to get hate. I think every closer in the league's ultimately never going to be truly liked unless they're an elite closer. But I am glad. You are right, though, Nick. I think that this was the first time that Alexis Diaz has come in to a game that felt like he didn't have any room for error. If he gave up a run there, it just felt like it already had felt like the air was out of the tire type situation where we weren't going to go anywhere. 2 runs was enough to win a 16-inning baseball game, let alone 9. Yet there was some pressure there, and he threw the ball well. So we'll see if it continues to progress that way.
I have a question for you, Trace.
I don't know if I have a good answer.
In the month of June, where did the Reds rank in Major League Baseball in runs scored?
Well, what they've done is, and this is what you do, Nick. What they've done is they've slaughtered a couple teams, and they scored 12, 13 runs in a couple games. So they inflate that number, and they make it feel like, oh, it's all, it's all good and dandy. You know what I'm saying? But I don't have a good analogy right now off the top of my head, but I don't like that. I don't like that. What I would rather you do, Nick, is tell me where the Reds rank in scoring at least 5 runs or more in a baseball game. That's what I would like for you to tell me. How many times have the Reds scored 5 runs or more in a baseball game versus the rest of the league? I'd like to know that. Now, I do know what you're getting ready to do to me. You're getting ready to tell me that they finished 14th in the league in runs or something like that this month. I don't know. Maybe it's higher. You're telling me it's better than that?
11th, baby.
See, there we go.
11th in Major League
This is what he
Baseball
does.
in runs scored in the month of June.
Well, I'm glad they can score 20 runs in one game and really make that stat look really, really good, because there are so many games that I watch that this starting pitching staff and bullpen throws a gem, throws great. They give up maybe 2 runs, maybe 3 runs at max. Sometimes they give up 1 run and lose. Point is that I need this offense to be a little more consistent. That's my problem. Maybe not how many runs they score, Nick, but I don't know if my math's going to be able to, or my statistic looking up is going to be good enough to rebuttal what you're saying. But I would venture to say that they are horrible when it comes to scoring a certain number or above. Just my hunch.
Yeah, I need to get another membership to look that up.
Well, we'll see.
You have to have the premium baseball reference, and I've got enough premium accounts.
Well, I'll buy it for you if you tell me that the stat that I just brought up was a good one for me.
It would be in there. But I don't. I used to have it. It's called StatHead. I would use it like 3 times a year, and it's like $100 a year or something. I was like, yeah,
all right. Well, I'll buy it tomorrow if you want it. No problem.
I'm not signing up for it.
I mean, I'll buy it for you. All right. We got some supers. We'll do those after Reds MILB, and what's next, we'll do those at the very, very end of this show. But before, you already heard the man. He watched the Chattanooga Lookouts in HD prime time, every single pitch. Nick, you going to give us a little Reds MILB presented by Nick Kirby?
Yeah, pretty good day of Reds MILB overall. Louisville, they won 2-0 over Toledo. Bats now 7-3 in their last 10, now 41-39 on the season. And good news, Blake Dunn back in this one, activated off the IL after that really ugly hit by a pitch in the face. He had 3 plate appearances in this one. One of them a successful sacrifice bunt. Dunn was pinch hit for by Jacob Hurtubise in the 7th inning. I watched back a little bit. I didn't see anything that was glaring. I think it was probably just 3 at-bats and he was done in his first game back. I don't think there's anything more to that. But good to see Blake Dunn back in the lineup. I know that's one guy, though. That's one guy at AAA that I think could actually be an upgrade for the Reds outfield at some point down the road this season. Jacob Hurtubise 0 for 2. Resigns 1 for 4 with a triple. That triple hit 401 feet, 104 off the bat. Connor Capel, he hit his 9th home run of the year. And then some really good pitching down at Louisville today. We'll start off with Justice Sheffield. This was a former first-round draft pick that the Reds took a flyer on. Really solid outing from him. 3 1/3 scoreless. 1 walk, 5 strikeouts. Just gave up 3 hard hit balls in this one. His slider was really effective. Got 6 whiffs on 13 swings on it. Doesn't throw very hard. His average fastball only 90.7, but a nice depth piece for the Reds, and good to see Justice Sheffield off to a good start. Casey Legumina, very impressive today. He went 2 2/3 innings, just gave up 1 hit, no walks, and struck out 4. Legumina had been really great, had a couple bad outings. Good to see him get back on track. Alex Young threw a perfect inning today, and then Tony Santillan threw a scoreless inning as well. And Peyton Burdick, he cleared waivers. He was outrighted back to the Louisville Bats. The Chattanooga Lookouts, they got it done today. They won 7-2 over Rocket City. They had their 3-game losing streak snapped. They are now 22-53 on the year. Bubba Thompson, 1 for 4, drove in 2 runs. Nick Northcutt, our DSC deep drive of the day, homered and doubled. Now got 15 homers on the year. Only a .265 on base percentage, but he's got 15 bombs. Dominic Patelli and Austin Hendrick both got the afternoon off. Dayton, they lost 5-1 to Fort Wayne. Dragons had their 5-game win streak snapped. They're now 39-36 on the year. Sal Stewart walked twice. Cam Collier, he was on base 3 times. Jay Allen, he went 0 for 4, finished the month of June. A really tough month for him, just hit a $143. Hector Rodriguez, 0 for 4 as well. And then Daytona, they lost 3-1 to Jupiter. Tortugas fall to 35-39. Anier Laureano, 2 innings, 2 hits, 2 runs. Didn't walk anyone. That's been his big problem this year, but did strike out 2. Sammy Stafura, 0 for 3 with a walk. Ricardo Cabrera, 0 for 3, did steal a bag. And then Smith Pineda, Ariel Almonte, and Yerlin Confidant, all 1 for 4. That's your Reds MILB.
It is the Reds MILB, presented by Nick Kirby. All right, we have a little bit of who, what, when, where, and why, and we get an opportunity with the new Major League Baseball and how they've set up, obviously, scheduling. We get an opportunity to see everybody in the league, and this is the chance we get to see the old famous Yankees.
Yeah, we'll have a little bit more on tomorrow's podcast previewing the series, but Yankees tied for first place in the AL East, 54-32. Reds have actually played pretty well at Yankee Stadium, 10-15 all time against the Yankees in New York. The Reds did win their last series there in 2022. That Yankees team won 99 games. The Reds team lost 100 games, but the Reds won the series. Just baseball for you. Reds are going to have a really big challenge in Game 1 against Luis Gil. It's spelled Gil, but it's pronounced Heel. Good news is he's given up 12 earned runs over his last 2 starts. Bad news is his ERA before those 2 starts was 2.03. He's currently the odds-on betting favorite to win the AL Rookie of the Year. And the Reds will have Graham Ashcraft at Yankee Stadium. So, 7:05. This will be a 3-game series. The rest of the series plays out as Andrew Abbott against Carlos Rondon. He's really struggled of late, Rondon has. And then Frankie Montas against Marcus Stroman. I'm excited to see Frankie Montas pitch at Yankee Stadium on Thursday. Maybe I won't be excited about 3 innings into the game, but a chance for him to really, stick it to the Yankees after, obviously, it didn't go well after the Yankees gave up a big haul to get him and bring him in. It didn't work well, so Frankie will be fired up for that one. But this is a tough series. A really good team on the road. You somehow win this series, though, Trace. This will be a really good road trip. I know it may not feel like it, but it would be a hell of a road trip.
Yeah, no, it would. It would be a good road trip. And, I don't know if they have it in them to win the series. We'll find out ultimately, obviously. But I will say this. I'm excited to at least watch a game, of in Yankee Stadium. And I know it's not the old Yankee Stadium, but, it's just I'm very much appreciative of watching Major League Baseball now with the new scheduling versus what it used to be. And I know we've brought that up before on the show, but just the visuals that you don't really ever get to see. I've watched plenty of games on TV in Busch Stadium. I've watched plenty of games at Wrigley. I've watched plenty of games at PNC and American Family and all these other places that obviously we've come to know in the National League. It's just cool to be able to see the Reds play in Fenway last year, playing Yankee Stadium this year, and we'll see ultimately if it yields good results from the Diamond standpoint. But just from a viewing standpoint, I'm excited to at least see it.
And this will be Elly De La Cruz's first ever time playing the Yankees. We know how much Elly likes to play in these type of games, as he wasn't in Dodger Stadium. So it's a much larger audience that gets to see Elly De La Cruz. I'm sure a lot of Yankees fans don't watch a whole lot of National League baseball, and they're going to get a chance to be exposed to our guy, Elly De La Cruz, and it would be awesome to see him just go off for 3 games in Yankee Stadium. But yeah, I mean, the Reds are going to face three tough pitchers. They've had some success though against Stroman, and then as mentioned, Rondon has struggled a little bit of late. So hey, maybe the Reds could find a way to get a series win, because you want to talk about a vibe. I don't know. It would bring
booster,
the vibes up.
booster,
Vibe booster. The vibe booster.
Yeah, you looking for the booster? New York knows a lot about
martini.
boosters, brother. I'll tell you that right now. Plenty of boosters that go around in New York.
I teed you up for that one.
What? I'm just saying. I don't know. Read the newspaper. All right. Anyway. Final parting thoughts as we head out is going to be me saying thank you as always to folks that watch the show on a nightly basis. I know tonight's not the night that we all were hoping for, but we're here nonetheless. And I do know that I owe everybody a nice live stream. I got to figure out what that's going to be. I have an idea, but we'll figure that out. Got some super chats to get to here before we leave. Joshua Mouse said, win 1 of 3 in New York, 2 of 3 in Detroit, 3 of 4 from Colorado, 2 of 3 from Miami, 8 and 4 is doable. It is. It is doable. Don't tell nobody, Joshua, that you're okay with only 1 and 1 in New York. That'll get you in trouble. I speak from experience. Clement's family said, good teams have enough good players that somebody always seems to be stepping up, keeping a winning record, sustaining a winning season. We need more of those guys, need 2 more 800 OPS guys. He's not wrong, 100%. I think that's a big storyline. If you want to get upset at the front office or you get upset at the organization, Nick nailed it, I guess, or mentioned obviously they whiffed on the 2020 draft. They have a significant gap between what they called up last season, which is probably something they didn't expect to happen that quickly. Not to give them an excuse, but that's the truth. And then where the next crop of players that we're excited about, which exist in Dayton right now, there needs to be a replenishment, hopefully, between those 2 gaps. Now, one way, Nick, quite frankly, to eliminate that gap is what? It's for these young guys that come up last year to grow up and be good Major League Baseball players. So I know the vast majority, Nick won't be in this crowd, but the vast majority of people that follow the Reds could care less what the farm system looks like if the big league club is playing well. So that's one way to fix the problem, is to get a competent big league team and not worry about what's in Chattanooga and Louisville this year. And then hopefully that Dayton group of kids will come up, and by the time they need some replenishment for the Major League roster, they'll be ready to go. We will find out, but Clement's family is not wrong. This Reds team, this Reds franchise, they need to find something in an outfield perspective that they can get some pop with. And you know what? I mean, Jorge Soler got paid a lot of money, Nick, and I don't know if we'd be thankful or happy that he's on our team either. We'd probably be complaining about him. He's an average hitter this season. Something in which I guess maybe you got to pay that much money anymore, Nick, to get an average hitter. I don't know. But point is, it's just not an easy game. Not an easy game. Fergie Fowler spending money saying AUPH stock. I knew that was going to happen as soon as I brought up stocks. $5.71. Not ideal for me. Not ideal. I kind of need them to figure that out. Michael Rolfe coming in as always said, good work, gents. Love you, chat. This team is fun. That's a wild thing to say. This team is fun, and I'm stupid for investing mentally every day. But at least we have CBox Sports. That you do. We're here. We're here. This team being fun is a wild take, though, Michael. I got to be honest. Sometimes this team is they are basically they're a roller coaster. That's for damn sure. One day you're high, next day you're low, and you get dropped to the depths of hell, and then they raise you right back out of the dead. That's one thing I will give credit for this Reds team. They find a way to bring you back every time you. It's like golf for most people, you know. you're terrible all day. You get to that 18th hole and you hit the best shot you've ever hit in your life. And you're like, you know what? I might come back again. So just a thought, Nick. Anything else to add before we leave?
Just arguing with the chat.
No, sometimes you just... Tonight's been a fun night. I tell you what, I'm going to say something serious. Nobody's wrong in the chat a lot. I'm reading the chat tonight. Nobody's wrong. There's a lot of good discussion in the chat. There's a lot of smart people, quite honestly, that are making good points on both sides. I think it's a fair and valid discussion. It's almost a reason as to why there's not a clear, easy, cut, dry answer. If it was an easy, clear-cut, dry answer, we'd already had a solution for it. But I'm telling you that the solution's not easy. And you can stand on both sides of the aisle of which side you want to be on. And at the end of the day, we'll have plenty of time, I have a hunch, to discuss all of the things that we've been discussing in this chat tonight moving forward. So don't go anywhere because this is only getting started. It's only getting started. Maybe I kind of cracked open the can a little bit tonight and swished it around, and we all got a little bit of a sniff of what we might be drinking here soon. And if it's the case, we got some good discussion. Because I'll be honest, there's a lot of smart people in the chat, man. There's a lot of smart people. There's a lot of people that are knowledgeable. And I think that, quite honestly, it's a fair and valid discussion, and we all want the same damn thing. Sometimes, in politics, everybody forgets what's the goal. We're all trying to make a better country. Some think that the country should be better ran this way, and some think the other way. And you're pretty passionate about the sides that you pick. I get it. We're all passionate about the sides we pick about this Reds team and their organization and how they go about winning. But we all want the same damn thing, and that is for this Reds team to win. And we all love one team under God, individual, the Cincinnati Reds, and that's all we really care about. Go Reds. We'll be back better than ever tomorrow. Take care, everybody.